All right, thank you very much for coming. We're starting our masterclass. That's the next session that we have. At this point, I will invite Dr. Tokmo Chidede. Actually, I will invite the moderator for the program, Madame Reginald Hammond. Let's put our hands together and welcome her, please.
Thank you so much, Program Director. Hello, everyone. Hello. Good afternoon and welcome to this masterclass brought to you by the AFCFTA Secretariat in partnership with the International Trade Center and the GIZ Trade Hub. This masterclass is for small and medium-sized enterprises, usually referred to as SMEs, as well as startups. So you might be wondering, what are we here to do? Over the next hour and a half, we would really explore how AFCFTA implementation can unlock market opportunities for tech-driven startups, as well as traditional businesses who are looking to integrate digital solutions into their operations. And without wasting much time, we would kick off with the opening session, and this will be delivered by Dr. Tokmo Chidede. He's a senior digital trade expert from the AFCFTA Secretariat. And he would really set the scene on AFCFTA provisions and what that means for businesses. Help me welcome Dr. Chidede to the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator and the MC. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the masterclass focusing on small and medium enterprises and what technology does in enabling the SMEs to participate in the AFCFTA. My role is just to give you an overview of the AFCFTA policy and how it promotes intra-Africa trade, at the same time putting much emphasis on digital technologies and how this can facilitate the participation of SMEs and other underserved communities in the AFCFTA. And my focus is going to be on the policy that has been created under the AFCFTA, and my colleagues will take you into practice. How do we translate this policy into action, and some of the practical examples that we do have. We have been having many people coming to the stand trying to understand what is this free zone. What is this AFCFTA that has been created? Are we part of this? Is my country part of this? And how do we participate? And allow me just to take a few minutes to give you a background or to give you an overview of what the AFCFTA and who are the beneficiaries of the AFCFTA. So the AFCFTA is a free trade agreement of all the African countries. What it means is all the African businesses from all the African countries can participate in this AFCFTA agreement. And the main purpose of this AFCFTA is to boost intra-Africa trade. We had in the previous conversations how African businesses are trading more with outsiders than they are trading with fellow Africans. And the reasons are quite obvious: the tariffs, the non-tariff barriers, the cost of doing business within the continent, the infrastructure, and many other things. Now the AFCFTA creates a legal environment for the free movement of goods, services, capital, and people. And it is a very comprehensive legal framework which covers not only trade in goods, it covers trade in services, intellectual property rights, investment, digital trade, women and youth in trade, and competition policy. I'm not going to touch on every legal instrument that I have mentioned. I'm going to focus on the relevant provisions or legal provisions of the AFCFTA, legal instruments that have a focus or that can leverage, that can enable SMEs to leverage digital technologies. And why are we focusing more on the SMEs? I think this is quite obvious for many reasons. Over 90% of the businesses across the continent are SMEs. Over 80% of the jobs across the continent are being given by the SMEs. So many livelihoods depend on the SMEs. And the same group of businesses, they contribute significantly to the GDP of the continent. The unfortunate thing, however, is the growth of these SMEs, it remains stifled for many reasons, especially participating across the cross-border trade, tariff barriers, non-tariff barriers, the cost of doing business, even the regulatory environment itself complicates the doing business of the SMEs. Digital technologies, why are we focusing on digital technologies? For obvious reasons again. Digital technologies, they level the playing field for both large businesses and small businesses. They lower the barriers to entry. In the brick and mortar, you need to have a huge capital, you need to have a huge infrastructure in place, buildings. But with digital technology, through the use of digital payments, digital platforms, you do not need a large capital for you to start the business. And digital technology, again, reduces the cost of doing business. The protocol on digital trade is one of the legal instruments of the AFCFTA, and this protocol focuses on removing tariffs for businesses that are trading across the borders. Tariffs are being removed on products that are made from the continent, including electronic devices, including digital devices that we use for e-commerce. It focuses on removing non-tariff barriers that businesses face as they trade across the continent. And removing these barriers, non-tariff and tariff barriers, makes it easier for businesses, and the costs are being reduced for the trading that is happening across the continent. The other legal instrument that is within the framework of the AFCFTA is the Protocol on Trade and Services. And this Protocol on Trade and Services focuses on liberalizing intra-Africa trade in services. And today, the member states of the African Union have chosen to prioritize 5 services sector that are going to be liberalized, and these include business services, communications, financial services, and transport services. Digital trade also enables trade in services, in particular, the delivery of services through digital technologies, what we call digitally delivered services. And in technical terms is called Mode 1, supply of the services. The other legal instrument within the AFCFTA framework is the Protocol on Competition Policy. We are seeing a lot of big tech companies creating monopoly within the digital market, having anti-competitive practices, which makes it difficult for small and medium enterprise to participate. We know of competition in the brick and mortar world, but the same anti-competitive practices, monopolies, and abuse of dominance is being extended in the digital market, which makes it difficult for the SMEs who are in the tech sector to compete with the big tech sectors. And the Protocol on Competition Policy regulates these competitions to ensure that the competition is fair and it does not stifle the growth and the innovation of the small and medium enterprises. The other protocol that is relevant to technology and digital technology, including emerging technology, is the legal instrument that covers intellectual property rights, what we call the Protocol on Intellectual Property Rights. And this protocol creates a legal framework that is continent-wide, that seeks to promote and protect the intellectual property rights of African innovators, including the emerging technologies that are being created by the African businesses. The other significant protocol is the Protocol on Investment, and this protocol creates a conducive environment from a policy point of view for investors who want to invest in other African countries, including investment into the digital infrastructure or the digital economy itself. And it also promotes the transfer of knowledge, the transfer of technology by investors when they invest in the host country, to ensure that the technology, the know-how, is also translated and the domestic industry benefits for the sustainable development of this economy. The other protocol that I will touch before I go into detail on the protocol on digital trade is the Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade. And this protocol on women and youth in trade is a protocol that seeks to support women and youth in the African continent that are trading across the continent. And there is a detailed chapter or provision that focuses on women and youth in digital technology. Now, this is just a legal framework that I've highlighted, the legal framework that forms this AFCFTA market. And as you can see, we have all the 50, out of the 55 member states of the African Union, 54 have signed the AFCFTA agreement to endorse that we endorse this market. We want to be part of this market because our economies ought to benefit, or our businesses need to participate in this AFCFTA market. And 49 of the member states have ratified to give consent to be bound by the legal commitments that they've agreed to under the AFCFTA agreement. Some might not see the connection between business and the legal framework. I think we all agree that legal frameworks create a conducive environment for business. It creates predictability, it creates certainty to know very well that if I am going to do business in another country, there is law that protects me, there is law that enables me, and it also prohibits this sudden change of laws and regulation that causes uncertainty in the market itself. So that is the legal framework that has been created under the AFCFTA, market. Now focusing on the protocol on digital trade, which is the instrument that I'm going to focus on. All these instruments that I've spoken about are already adopted. They do exist. If you want to have a look at them, our colleagues through the screens, they can show you these details. Even on our websites, these documents, they do exist, so that you can also have a look at and see what are some of the operational instruments that have been developed to support the participation of African businesses into this market. The protocol on digital trade focuses on digital trade, which covers the trading of goods and services through digital technologies. How businesses sell through digital platforms, payments are being made through digital payments, security is being enhanced through the legal framework. The first part I want to touch on is the market access. So it touches on areas that enables a business from Nigeria to do business in Algeria. Quite often, you will not find the market that is easily accessible in the digital economy, because there are many restrictions that governments impose. For example, in the financial services sector, if you are a fintech in Algeria, you will not have access to the market, for example, in South Africa, because they do have restrictions, and they can discriminate to say, we will not give you a license to have financial services as a fintech to provide financial services in South Africa, because you are not from South Africa. Under the protocol on digital trade, these restrictions have been removed, and to ensure that if you comply with the requirements, if you provide the services that are needed and you meet all the registration requirements that are needed for the domestic market, you will be accorded the license, and you will still compete with the local companies for the same services or for the same sector that you are applying for. And it also focuses on the removal of customs duties on digital products, for example, electronic books, softwares, and many other digital products that will be traded across the continent. Today, under the WTO, we have a moratorium that allows member states to renew this moratorium every 2 years, to say, as members of the WTO, we will not impose custom duties on digital products or electronic transmissions. But under the FCFTA, this has been banned permanently, so long the FCFTA exists. And one day, if the members of the African Union decide to change the law, but as it stands, the customs duties will not be imposed on digital products. The same thing in discrimination. Governments will not be allowed to discriminate between a tech company that is from one country against the tech company from another country, or to discriminate a foreign company against the local companies. We all have the same market. We can compete effectively and be vetted to meet the same requirements. The second part of the protocol on digital trade, which makes it also very relevant in enabling SMEs to participate in the AFCFTA, is the use of digital tools, the use of electronic contracts, the use of electronic signatures, the use of digital identities, the use of digital payments, and these things will have the same legal effect or will be accepted in the legal frameworks of the member states to enable businesses to trade seamlessly across the continent. The digital identities, now every government have a legal mandate to give digital identities for all individuals and businesses within their jurisdictions. And these digital identities will serve multiple purposes, not only digital trade or trade under the FCFTA, but even the provision of socio-economic activities. The second most important thing under this part is on digital payments, ensuring that there is interoperability and connectivity of multiple digital payment systems at the continental level, regional level, domestic level, including mobile monies, such that they can be able to pay, to make payments and receive payments at the cross-border level. Data transfers is also important in digital trade. We do have many restrictions that prohibit the transfer or the movement of data across the borders. That has been removed, and now it's allowed under the protocol on digital trade to enable businesses and SMEs to trade across the borders or to transfer their data as they do business across the continent. The second part is on online consumer protection, or online business and consumer trust. And this is very important because most of the SMEs, including customers, including consumers, do not feel safe to participate online because we do not feel protected. And in this case, the protocol on digital trade develops regulatory requirements for governments to ensure cybersecurity, online consumer protection, the protection of source code, and many other aspects that are related to online safety and security. Lastly is on digital trade inclusion. What my colleagues are going to cover is going to be focusing mostly on this part because we see a huge potential under this protocol to accelerate the implementation of the FCFTA and also to enable the SMEs to participate under the to participate in the FCFTA, not only to participate, but also to benefit under the FCFTA. The protocol focuses on detailed measures and commitments that government should provide in enabling or developing digital skills, digital entrepreneurship, and enabling SMEs, rural communities, persons with disabilities, giving them the necessary skills, including the startups, women and youth, led businesses, so that they can participate in the FCFTA. We'll be happy after this session to take you through all these policies that I'm talking about. Are policies that do exist and have been negotiated and agreed by the member states, and they are quite comprehensive legal instrument, and I've tried to summarize them in a few minutes so that we can move on to the next session. And last but not least is the promotion of emerging technologies in cross-border trade, including artificial intelligence, blockchain technologies, and cloud computing that businesses are developing and ensuring that they are deployed in a responsible, safe, and ethical manner. What I've said, this would be my last point. This protocol has been created, or governments have come up with legal frameworks to ensure that African-owned enterprises, African digital products, African digital platforms, African content benefits from this FCFTA market, of course allowing foreign participation, allowing foreign investment into the continent, but to ensure that the rightful beneficiaries are the African products, the products that are being developed by the Africans themselves, including the technologies, including the innovations, including the platforms that are being developed by our Africans, including the small and medium enterprises. Thank you very much for listening. I will leave this for my next colleague.
A hand of applause for Dr. Chidede. Thank you so much for your insightful contribution, which really highlights the legal architecture of the AFCFTA, as well as the provisions for small businesses. But you might be wondering, what does it really mean practically? And this is where Mr. Edem Numadzi from the GIZ Trade Hub would really delve into. He would really talk about the practical implications of all that Dr. Chidede has said for tech-driven businesses as well as traditional businesses. So Mr. Numadzi, please join us up here. Thank you. And he would have a presentation, so it would be a different dynamic. Thank you.
Maybe I'll need my colleague to join me and help me figure out her laptop. This thing is not. Oh, okay, that's it. Okay. Okay. Yeah, good. Thank you very much, Kathy. I know the irony for someone who is going to speak on digital technologies, and I'm struggling to navigate the PowerPoint. But thank you very much, Kathy. And where I'm from, they say when the chief takes a shower, there's no water left. And Chief Chidede has taken a very comprehensive shower, so it seems like I do not have a lot more to say, but I'll try to delve into the implications of all that he has said for technology-driven companies and how it could be beneficial for them. So I like to think of the AFCFTA as, or the way that trade used to happen on the continent, as an operating system, where some of the features of that operating system in the past was that the markets were very fragmented, was that there were differing rules on how traders could navigate these markets, and this would present obstacles and barriers for these traders. And it would also present some uncertainty for people looking to invest or enter into these markets. But the AFCFTA came along with some bug fixes and brought on a new operating system that is looking to revolutionize the way that we do business on the continent, looking to integrate all of our individual markets into one unified market, one amalgamated market, reduce the barriers to trade, and get intra-African trade moving. Right, so today's focus will be on trade and services, digital trade, intellectual property rights and investments, and the implication of these protocols for tech-driven businesses on the continent. So I'm just going to start off with the trade and services protocol. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set a context with a business, right? And then we'll talk about how the protocol would impact them and how they could navigate the provisions of the protocol. So first off, under trade and services, we have a Ghanaian business-to-business software as a services provider, right? That sells subscriptions fully online. So fully online means they are mode 1. I'll get into that shortly, in Kenya. So they are in Ghana, based in Ghana, but they are selling their businesses to business clients in Kenya. So where the after would come in is that we could use the services schedules or commitments from the different state parties. Now we are talking about Kenya, to see what Kenya has proposed for that subsector, for business services, right? And what that would mean for the business. So in navigating this under the protocol, the first step would be for the software as a services business to look at what classification the business has, right? So for businesses, you have for sectors and subsectors, you have a CPC code that you first look at, and then you go into the offerings of the state parties, and over there you are able to see what the different state parties have offered. Over here, I'd like to add that the Secretariat is working tirelessly to eventually publish all the offerings of the different state parties. So that is under work that's ongoing. And when that happens, everyone will be able to check and see what the offerings or the commitments are for the different state parties. But against that backdrop, So you go in there and you identify for your sector, let's say, so this is a business services, what the code is, what Kenya has offered for the different modes of supply. Now, modes of supply simply refers to how the services would be delivered in the market. So there are four major modes, four main modes. The first one, which is mode 1, is cross-border supply, where the business doesn't have to be in the market, but they can offer the services in the market. The second mode is consumption abroad, where the consumer goes abroad to consume the services. Over here, I like to think of when young men are approaching a certain stage in our lives where our hair goes away from us, and the hair is running away, but Turkey says no. Turkey says they are not going to let that happen. And so you go over there, and then you get engage in some medical tourism, and then you get everything fixed up. So that's an example of consumption abroad. And the third mode is commercial presence, where a business would say, in expanding into a different market, I would like to set up a subsidiary, maybe a hub and spoke model, where we are here in Ghana, but for delivering this service in Kenya, would have an outlet there or a subsidiary office there. And then for the fourth mode of supply, that's presence of natural persons. That usually refers to when individuals move across borders to go deliver services in different jurisdictions. So as a consultant, I could go into Senegal and support ITC's work there on some specific activity. So that would be a mode 4 service delivery. So it's important that for the business, you identify what mode would work for you. When you've identified the mode and you know your classification, you are able to take this vis-a-vis what the target market has offered, so what Kenya has offered. And Kenya is able to determine, okay, for mode 1, for this particular sector, I am either binding it, so there are 3 ways that they call it. So it's bounded, it's unbounded, or there's none. So bounded means for the initial licenses and regulatory requirements, they are promising to stick to it, and there will be no changes, right? And unbounded means we are not committing anything just yet. So at any point in time, we could come up with some new regulation, and you would have to acquiesce to it. And then for none means there are no regulations, so you can go in there, do your thing. So these are the service commitments for the different states parties. And then when you've determined that, you design your approach to enter into the market. It's important that you understand the national context of the service you are going to deliver in that country. Because while we are opening the market, the agreement allows state parties to reserve the rights for setting small licensing, small regulations. So it's important to understand all of that, check and see if local presence is required, check and see what that would mean for your business. And then I think I've skipped to target market regulations. And then you can leverage the DTP provisions, where you can deploy smart contracting, e-contracting, that doesn't require you to be there, and where e-signatures could validate those contracts, and then you are good to go in the market. So that, in a nutshell, is what it would look like as a services provider working on the services, under the services protocol, to deliver a cross-border service. I'll move quickly into digital trade protocol. This is one of my favorites because there are so many different innovations that can be spawned from this. Here the South Africans say technologia. It is a very interesting term. So for this context, we are going to look at Pan-African e-commerce marketplaces. So something like Illumia. I'm not trying to use the actual word so I don't get sued. But Illumia says we want to get on board SMEs from different parts of the continent. And the angle here would be e-transaction recognitions. The fact that the provisions and the digital trade protocol allows for or engenders e-transactions and provides for online consumer protection, interoperability of for identity and payments that would unlock doing business online, right? So over there, that would be the AFCFTA angle. And the first way that could help, the protocol could help, would be on onboarding the sellers, right? Because it's a digital marketplace. Different SMEs need to sign up. A lot of the time, if you don't have a commercial presence there, you would need to find a way to onboard the sellers that would operate on your platform. Over here, you can have e-contracts, smart contracts, and the digital identity allow you to strengthen your know your client or know your business. That also ensures that you are offering very good services, very trusted services, so that people don't get scammed on your platforms, right? And here on the consumer focus, you try to harmonize your terms of services and your return policies to what the protocol prescribes, so that if there are any issues, you are within the remit of the digital trade protocol. So like I said earlier, because of the contracting and payment provisions under the protocol, you are able to use e-signatures, e-contracts, blockchain-backed smart contracts to get merchants on board, to also facilitate payments as well, because you are collecting payments from clients or consumers from across the continent. They can't walk into some place and put the money down for the goods or services they are getting on your platform. There should be a way that we are remitting the payments to the different clients or SMEs on board of your platform. So over here, digital transactions and payments as prescribed under the digital trade protocol makes that very convenient. And data governance, because there's a big issue coming up. A lot of these marketplaces collect a lot of data. So we need to determine how we are going to treat the data, how we are going to utilize the data, the privacy options that people should be should have with regards to their data. So in a nutshell, once again, this is a practical overview of what the DTP could mean for a business that's trying to scale on the continent to other parts of the continent. Sorry. So investment. So another case study, another context. We have a payments processing app that is looking to expand or invest in new markets, expand their footprint. Over here, the angle would be that because the provisions in the AFC-FTA protocol on investments give them some sort of protection, there's predictability for the way that they move. They don't move around afraid that maybe one day they wake up and the national government expropriates their business or takes over their business like used to happen in the past. And that gives them confidence in entering the market. So over here, a good way to go about it will be to determine the model you want to apply. So like I mentioned earlier, there's the hub and spoke model where you have a hub, and then when you're entering into different markets, you decide, I want to invest in a subsidiary in that market or expand my footprint and build up a subsidiary in that market. And then you determine, because you're entering into different markets, because like I mentioned earlier, there are still some national requirements, right? Which national requirements are more easier to circumvent or to get past, and then that allows you to sequence what markets you'll be entering. So let's say you're entering into Kenya first, because for Kenya, maybe Kenya and Ghana has an MRA that allows you to not do double licensing. Or in the case of Rwanda, the Central Bank of Rwanda and the Central Bank of Ghana has a regulatory sandbox that doesn't require you to do a double licensing for a payments platform. So all these things could determine how you enter the market. And then you leverage on the provisions on the protocol where the protocol requires all state parties to have risk disclosures to ensure that they treat your investment like they would treat the investment of a citizen of their country, right? So that de-risks the investment move for you as an investor looking to go into that market. Then the last but not least, intellectual property rights, which is emerging now. A lot of creative people are doing things and they want their work protected. And so they're asking questions. If I have some proprietary code and I enter a market and I partner and I start working in the market, would I be protected? If someone decides to start using my code, are there any provisions for me to leverage on to ensure that I get redress? So over here, our context is an agri-tech app that has a hardware sensor, right? And that is looking to enter certain markets, but could face the possibility of copycat brands because people see, and maybe people have access to your source code some way, somehow, I don't know. And then they realize they can maybe replicate your code, right? And if it's proprietary, you would want to have it protected. So over here, the strategy would be to very early, or the AFCFTA angle would be to very early file some protections, whether it's patents or utility protections, your copyright, your software, trademarks, anything that you feel like this could be replicated, you file protections for them. So the very first step, like I said, would be to file a trademark so that when you enter into the market, it's recognized. The good thing is the ARIPO, the African Regional Intellectual Property Organization, and the French equivalent, the OAPI, are beginning to work together, especially under the Protocol on Investment, so that when you file for protection in one country, or you file through these organizations, there's continent-wide protection for your intellectual property. And then as a business, you enter the market, it will be important to train your ops officers, your operational officers, on how to detect and how to seek redress for any issues that may come up with regards to protecting your intellectual property. So against all of these backdrops, these 4 key protocols, I put together what I like to call a unified market entry playbook. So you decide as a business you want to enter another African market, right? These are maybe simplified steps on what to look out for in your quest to expand. So here I like to say that the first thing to do is to define what model you want to do, right? What are you offering? Are you offering goods and services or services? What would be the required modes for offering those services or those goods? For an e-commerce platform, it would be interesting to look at the rules of origin governing the goods that would be traded on the platform as well. And then when you decide on the country, the target market, the country you want to enter, the state party, you check the national conditions, right? The openness, what commitments they've made for your specific mode of entry, and then you determine if that's worthwhile for you. So that allows you to also determine your target market, right? Because you are trying to go into a market that has as little restrictions as possible. So thankfully, you are able to check all these things. And then you, like I said, understand the digital trade provisions, the trust rails that come with doing business in that market for that specific sector. So for e-commerce, maybe you can look at the issues of data governance under the DTP. You can look at online transactions, the interoperability of payments that allows you to maybe repatriate funds from the market you are entering, all of that. And then you can look at how you want to structure your entity or your investment. So like I mentioned, a good way which a lot of businesses employ is the hub and spoke model, where you have a headquarters and then you have different spokes in different regions, right? And then, like I said earlier, protect your IP early. We need to protect our IPs. And on that note, maybe from here I need to go to Canex and speak to them. I'm sorry that I'm using a Caucasian male up here. For Africa, maybe we need to get a lot more African digital assets, and then they protect it, so I pay to use it. But yeah, so that could be interesting. And then you can track your compliance, right? Because that's a big thing. You enter the market, it's important that you don't fall into issues, get into trouble if you are not complying with the provisions in the market. All of this, what all of this does, right? All of the different provisions of the AFCFTA does is that at its bare minimum, you have access to a market of 1.4 billion people, spending power of 3.4 trillion, right? So for an SME or a business, you are able to sell digital goods, services to this market, right? You are also able to employ paperless trade, which says your business will move faster, your transactions are faster, your processes are improved, all of that. And then digital IDs, like my brother Tokmo mentioned, ensures that for a very sensitive sector like maybe fintech, financial services, where there's a lot of trust that has to come to play, you are protected because you do proper eKYC and you are able to ensure that you are scaling responsibly, right? And then payments are easier now with the advent of the PAPs and a lot of other tech-enabled businesses that are looking to do cross-border payments on the blockchain platform. There's a lot more opportunities for payments and data flow as well. And then, yeah, like I mentioned, there's a lot more trust because now we are harmonizing security provisions. We are ensuring that when a business goes into another country, there is some protection for them. And I'll close off with just 2 examples of the way that AFCFTA is in practice now. So we have Chapa, an Ethiopian payment platform that is seeking to expand. They started in Ethiopia in 2020, and they are looking to attract international investment or Pan-African investment to scale their operations. The way that the AFTA works for them, the AFCFTA works for them, is that it assures investors of predictability. That when I put money into this business and it enters another market, we are not going to see a situation where maybe some national entity or whatever expropriates this investment and all of a sudden you lose out, right? So it ensures that there are continent-wide standards for the way that your investment is deployed and utilized, all of that. And another example, M-Pharma, I'm sure a lot of us know M-Pharma. They're a Ghanaian health tech company. So they have proprietary softwares with regards to pharmacy management, inventory management, and forecasting. And for them, the way that the AFCFTA would help is looking at moving into different markets. It would be important that when they take this proprietary software into a certain market and they partner with other players, they wouldn't have issues of their intellectual property being stolen, because when they file the trademarks, there are continent-wide recognitions of that intellectual property, and it's protected as such. So at this point, I come to the end of my presentation. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you as well, Mr. Numaji. Thank you so much. At this point, I would undertake what I would call a knowledge check, because this is a master class. We are here to learn. So has anyone had a new concept so far? If you've had a new concept, just wave your hand. Any fresh concept that you've heard since we started? Any new word? If yes, just respond by a wave of hand. Okay, I see 2, 3, 4. Okay, and we've been making reference to AFCFTA. So I want one person to really say it out in full. What does AFCFTA mean? I would move around. Can I come to you?
AFCFTA means African Continental Free Trade Area.
Great. A couple of protocols have been referenced so far. Maybe we just list 2. So I'll come this way. You can mention any of the AFCFTA protocols.
Okay, thank you. Protocol on digital service, trade in business protocol.
Okay, and then the last one before we move to our final speaker. Okay. Should we take it from that side then? Just mention one of the AFCFTA protocols, please. Okay.
I think protocol on trading goods, protocol on trading service, protocol on women and youth, protocol on digital trade, investment protocol, and the like. Yeah.
Okay, you are an expert. Thank you so much. And just to know, after this, we would have a question and answer segment. So then if you have any burning questions on your mind, it would provide an opportunity for us to glean even more insights. But at this point, I would want to welcome Ms. Kathy Saul. She's a program coordinator at ITC for Tech and Services. And she would really talk about Africa's tech landscape, as well as emerging technologies when it comes to tech. And should also give success stories, because this is not theoretical. Some businesses have been able to scale. They started local, but they are now continental. So Kathy would also highlight that. Thank you, Kathy. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Let's see.
All right, that's great. All right, so we started the session great, and we tried to be as practical as we could. So we know that the AFCFTA is only happening in a few years, right? So we really want to give you already a few tips on how you can go from local to global. So I will just go quickly so through Africa's digital ecosystem, telling you what has been happening, the growth, the trend, and also the sector opportunities, right? It is a way as well to convince you to explore digital tools to also expand your businesses no matter which sector you are. So I just have a quick question. Who owns a business here? Okay, a couple. So who is already in the tech sector? Ah, perfect. Many. Who is in the agri sector? Other sectors? All right, that's great. So I see fashion as well. So the reason why I'm asking is because so the tech and digital solutions now are really cross-cutting. They are cross-cutting thematic, and you will see that in the last year we have been having many and different sectors that are using tech as an enabler. So we talk a lot about the fintechs with my colleagues. So you have had mobile payments, digital wallets, which were really boosted by the entrance of mobile money in Africa, but also internet access. So fintechs has been very successful in the last years, so as you will see. We also have agri-tech, so people in the agribusiness, so using tech products for precision farming, so smart farming, but also using digital marketplace for farmers to give them access to input, to investment, you name it. So we have also tech in health, education, but also in tourism, you name it. So just to tell you that tech now is not just a specific sector, but it is cross-cutting, and you can use it in any sector. So I want to tell you a little bit more of what has been happening in the tech landscape in Africa in the last, let's say, decades, right? So this is a view of what are the sectors that are attracting funding and has been attracting funding since 2019. So just last year, we received 3.6 billion worth of funding. It is in US dollar that targeted tech companies, right? And if you look at the sectors, you will see that they went mostly to the fintech sector. So as I said, fintech has been really successful. We'll talk about the unicorns later to show you how really fintech has been dominating this landscape and those sectors. So this reason why is because we have had a lot of regulations that are conducive to fintech. Regulations that allows cross-border payment, but that allows also fintech to rapidly scale. So one fintech from Senegal scaling in many countries in Africa. So we will show you Wave, for instance, which is a good case study. So you will see also that interesting sectors such as agri-tech has been receiving money, but e-commerce as well. So you know all Jumia. Jumia has been doing pretty well. They are the first unicorn of Africa. So e-commerce businesses has been also very successful in the continent. So who knows what a unicorn is? We have two, three, four, five. All right, so a unicorn is a tech company that has more than a $1 billion US valuation. So it means that these are the most successful, more or less, tech startups in Africa. And what you will notice is that 8 out of the 9 unicorns of Africa are fintech companies. So they are in the financial industry. You have Andela, which is more or less in HR, so for talent and software sourcing, but 8 out of them are fintech companies. We had Jumia before, but they left. They are facing a little bit of challenges. We will talk about it later. So where is the money going? The 3.6 billion US dollar of funding. Unfortunately, it's going only in 4 countries. 4 countries. 84% of the 3.6 billion is going in 4 countries. And those countries are Egypt, Nigeria, South Africa, and Kenya. So, do you know why? Yes? You said?
Highly populated.
Absolutely. The population is huge. The market size is huge, right? If I'm an investor, I want to invest in a company that has a big market size because the return on investment will be fast and will be good for me. So the good return on investment. So you see that so those big markets are attracting 84% of the funding. And we hope that with the AFCFTA, this will change because we will be in a unified market where no matter where you're from, you have the same opportunities. So this means that if you are in Algeria, mostly the funding coming for VC are coming to Egypt because they're capturing 84% of regional funding. If you are from Senegal like me, all the funding almost is going to Algeria, and this is unfortunate, right? This is why we need the AFCFTA to make a change on that. So an important point as well is females. We are once again behind. We don't receive funding at all. So 6% of the total funding we have received. That's really bad. And it is also due to the fact that the VCs are males, right? We don't see a lot of female VCs, so it is harder maybe for us to convince them and to attract money. So this is why we have been also working at ITC in initiatives like Women in Tech, for instance. So I have a few companies, so I think you want to know who is giving the money, right? So I think this is a good list for you, just in case you want to apply for funding. So you will see that we have VC firms that are more targeting early stage, so having small tickets around from 10,000 to 200,000. So you have those that are specialized in EdTech, for example, like EdVentures. You have Digital Africa, which is an initiative backed by AFD. So targeting a lot French-speaking countries as well. So I think this is a good list because these are the top VCs in Africa, those providing the funding. So how to go from local to continental in the meantime? We will be having AFCFTA later, and that will be great. But I just want to give you a few growth strategy, but also some success stories, all right? So as my colleague Idim already mentioned, the reason why Africa is such an attractive continent is because we can see that the consumer spending has been growing by 4% annually since 2000. We will have a population of 2.5 billion by 2050. We will also have a single market of 1.4 billion, which is great. So this is backed and enabled by urbanization, many people going to urban areas. We also talk about mobile money, about access to internet, but also better stability overall in the continent. So if I'm a business and I want to go global, want to go international, the first thing is to look for the proximity. It is easier as an Algerian startup to go in Egypt or to go in Tunisia, for instance, right? Because it is closer, you have to spend less money to go there, and you have at least some knowledge of the market. And then you have also the economic potential, such as the higher market size. You might face some more competition in Egypt, but if you're successful in Egypt, you will be very, very, very rich, and you will have a lot of money. So this is why Egypt is so attractive, why Nigeria is so attractive, or why South Africa as well is so attractive. Then you also need to look for low competition, right? You want to have the first mover advantage. So it is easier for you to have VC money if you go in a market that doesn't offer already your product or your service. So this is as well something that we will see later. So you have already heard of the TAM, the SAM, the SOM, I imagine. It is all about knowing your market size, which is very, very important, right? So if I had to summarize the TAM, the SAM, and the SOM in 1 and 2 words, I would say that the TAM is go big, go global. The SAM will be, okay, focus a little bit, and the SOM will be realistic, right? Let's take the example of Airbnb. Where Airbnb started their business, they saw that the TAM was the total leisure and vacation market, and it was 1.6 trillion, right? And so this is the global leisure and vacation market. But then they said, okay, we need to go in a particular segment, which is the vacation rental globally. So they went to 300 billion. And then they just decided, okay, we will target 10% of this short-term vacation rental globally. So the target was 30 billion. So it means that you have to look big at the beginning, but then you should be realistic and focus on your target in order to define what is your market size. So when you decide to go international, it is also important for you to know which kind of market you are entering, right? So the first type of market is a market with a lot of competitors and a lot of customers. And in this type of market, what is important is to focus on demand. So creating demand instead of focusing on outperforming others. So I will just give you an example of Spotify. So when Spotify was created, they had iTunes already. So what they decided to do is to focus on consumers that will rather have access rather than ownership, right? You remember iTunes, you will have to download to have MP3, so you had limited access really. But Spotify just came and gave all of us access to millions of songs, and then that was what made them successful. So you also have markets that are dominated by one or few players, right? And in those markets, what is important is really to see where is the gap. What are they not doing well, those one or two players, and do better than them? I will also give an example, Skype and Zoom, right? When Skype became integrated to Microsoft, it became slower, less performant, and no one wanted it. But Zoom came, provided an easy-to-use, reliable platform, and people switched to Zoom. So they saw what was the gap of Skype, and then just worked on that for people to attract their customer segment. Then there is a market where you have no competition. So this is ideal, right? Because you are happy, you are the only one. And what makes it special is that it's easy for you to have VC money in a market where there is no competition. They will want to give you money. So let's take the case of Uber, right? They were a first mover advantage. They came, they changed everything, and people started, making peer-to-peer riding familiar. So you now have Yasir, you have so many other apps, right? You are first mover. So what is good with that is it's easy to raise investment, but also it is very profitable because you have a big market share, at least. And finally, you have the market where similar culture allows you to transpose your business model, where it is very easy to just, replicate from market to market. So if you look at McDonald's, they are everywhere, but an important thing is to have a twist, right? You cannot replicate 100%. You will replicate but have a twist. So McDonald's, for instance, in Côte d'Ivoire, where I say, they have plantains in their menu. I went to Jamaica, where people love jerk chicken. They said the KFC was better than the jerk chicken. So it is, the twist and how you adapt to local markets. So just quickly on that is also the way you decide to enter the market. Do you use exporting? Exporting is really fast and low risk. So you need just to find a distribution channel, a partner for that, low risk, very fast. Do you use licensing and franchising? So hopefully, yes, AFCFTA will remove that, but it is still fast, low cost, and the risk is a bit more than export, but it is still good, right? Because here you have reduced control, that's the issue, and as well you have so risk related to intellectual property and contract. That's the only issue with licensing and franchising, but it is still a good option. And then you have the strategic alliance. This one is good if you want to enter a market where you don't know really well the culture, and then you find a partner who has a good brand reputation, who can represent you, so it is still shared cost, but it allows you to really integrate, right? So coming from Cote d'Ivoire or from Senegal, if I want to enter the the Algerian market, I need to know a little bit of Arabic. So I need maybe to partner with someone in Algeria. So then you have the wholly owned subsidiary, which is very expensive and very risky, right? And this is only done by very mature companies. It is when you invest in talent, you invest in infrastructure, you invest in building your own company in a new country. And this is where you need investment because it is expensive. So this is a chart showing, you know, how high the degree of ownership and control will be with each model, but also the extent of investment and risk. So quickly, I will also show you, so what is being investment ready? It is important, especially if you want to expand quickly, if you want to own your own company in a specific market. For you, as a business, you need to be viable. You need to show that you have a return on investment, and you need to clearly articulate your investment needs. So this is being attractive to investors. It is important because if you want to grow rapidly, you need to be ahead of competitors. You need to have the human resources. You need to have the product development, but also you need to invest on marketing and consumer acquisition. So the investors will look at different things, such as finances, investment proposal, governance, operations, so many things. It is hard to be investment ready. It is hard to raise money from VCs, but this is something mandatory for you. So the other thing is acquiring and retaining customers. When you go to a new market, you need to know who is your customers, who is your target, and please don't do the common mistakes, which is not gathering customer feedback to adapt your product or your service. Do not provide prices that are too high, which are not sustainable. Do not also do the poor prospecting, where you spend a lot of money instead of building partnerships to acquire new clients, and also work on your value proposition. So I will just end with two case studies. We have Wave Mobile Money in Senegal, founded in 2018. So what they did in fintech, so what they do is money transfer, bill payments, merchant payments, and they are one of the unicorns that we talk about. And they found competitors such as Orange Money, MTN Mobile Money, Airtel already, but they were able to be more successful than them. And this was what their market entry strategy was. So first, they provided ultra-competitive fees, right? Being from Senegal, I was using Orange Money before, and we were paying 13% of fees to transfer money. When they came, their fees were 1%, right? Everyone switched to them because they were very competitive. And now Orange Money is at 0.8% just to get back their customers. So this was really a good case where we can see ultra-competitive fees. They were also very, very close to the local ecosystem. They spent at least 3 years in regions outside of the capital to just talk to people in rural areas, to do their branding before they enter the capital. So they use their R&D, but also they closeness to the neighbors, to the rural areas, and they also use a lot of the local language, right? But a good thing is that they receive also a lot of funding, $200 million in 2021, and with that money, of course, you can expand to Mali, Burkina, Uganda, you name it. So today, Wave has 10 million active users across the ECOWAS region, the UEMOA region. So they changed everything, and transfer costs became very low. So the last case studies is Jumia, which is an e-commerce, just not to talk about only fintechs. So 2012, they were backed by MTN, Goldman, and Sage, so big names, of course. And they wanted to become the Amazon of Africa, and they did it, right? So they use a different strategy where they launch in different countries at the same time. Nigeria, Egypt, Morocco, Kenya. This is because they were backed by those big names. This is how powerful you are when you are backed, right? It's because as well they were unique. So as I said, if you enter a market without competitor, VCs will give you money, of course. So they also had an entire infrastructure connecting sellers and buyers, but also handling deliveries, but also doing digital payments. So they really provided a full services. So they also adapted a lot to local realities. If I purchase something on Amazon, I will pay with my card for my purchase to be validated. What they did is cash on delivery, which works better in Africa, but also they use a lot of offline agents and kiosks. So right now they are active in 10 African countries. They attracted millions of customers, and they were also IPO valued at 1.9 billion at a point. But just quickly, they face also some challenges, which is the high operating cost for e-commerce and logistics. So also they pull out because of that in many markets, including Rwanda, Tanzania, and also the competition. You have more and more e-commerce as well. So they are not anymore in the unicorn list, but they have been doing well, and they have really changed the landscape of e-commerce in Africa. So I will end there. Thank you very much. We are here for questions.
Thank you so much, Kathy. A round of applause. And at this point, I would invite the speakers to take the seats up here, just for 1 or 2 questions, because we are really pressed for time. So Mr. Numadzi, Ms. Sal, and Mr. Chidede, please take the seats. We are really pressed for time. We would have to stay within schedule. So at this point, I would open the floor for questions. You can take the mic, introduce yourself, and direct it to one of our speakers. Or if all of them, that's just fine. So who wants to start? Any burning question? Or any comments for that matter? Okay.
Hi. Thank you for this great presentation. All of 3 of you were really great. So I'm Walid Abdelberi. I work at the UNDP here in Algeria. And so we work also on digital, supporting the government on the digital transformation strategy. And the idea is also probably now that I'm attending this great event to see how we can incorporate the AFCFTA component into well, since they're starting better to start off well. So I was actually wondering, what is I heard Dr. Chidede's great presentation, the protocols, etc. That was something that I was actually asking myself about. But what do you see, what is the potential for you to see, like, or the maturity of the digital ecosystems, including the infrastructure in the various countries, which are very various from a country to another, into interoperable systems where you can actually freely go to one country from another, trade, into even when you spoke of data exchange of payments as well. The payment infrastructure. So how do you see, what are the barriers actually do you see and that we need to overcome actually on the continent? So that would be my question in a nutshell.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that question. The first thing I want to highlight is, indeed, the challenge is the various levels of development across the continent, especially in the infrastructure. And we believe investment in the digital infrastructure across the continent is one of the most important things that governments need to prioritize to ensure that they participate in the digital economy. The participation of the digital in the digital economy is more of a positive action that needs to be taken by the government themselves. Even from a digital trade regulatory perspective, it's more about putting necessary regulations in place rather than removing regulations as we see in other perspectives. So as a first step, we believe that we have laid the legal foundation that creates a conducive environment of the investors to come, and as governments, we believe or we encourage, even in the protocol, there are specific provisions that talk about the development of the infrastructure, the development of the digital infrastructure, investment in the digital infrastructure, and ensuring that investment does not only come from the public sector, it also comes from the private sector. So we create these PPPs. We attract investment even from the non-traditional investors or funders per se. The demonstration that we are going to do in our implementation is what we call the variable geometry. We demonstrate the proof of concept with the countries that are quite advanced to prove that the things that have been agreed or committed to by governments, they do work. And once this has been demonstrated, investors get interested, businesses get interested, and that's how even the other countries that are not quite advanced in the infrastructure will be able to advance. Then the third thing is the fact of infrastructure sharing, especially in areas of the data centers, in areas of the cloud system. So we had, if you look at the protocol, there's this notion that have been agreed by the member states themselves to ensure that member states allow the infrastructure sharing. For example, there are countries that are located in within the coastal areas, and they do have the fiber optics, the undersea cables for internet, and instead of creating this barrier to say, because it has only been installed in my country, no one else should be able to use it, the mandate and the obligation is you should be able to share the infrastructure with other countries that are landlocked. Secondly, in the same area is the idea of creating regional data centers, regional cloud infrastructure for the entire region, such that the costs are being shared among the region, the costs are being shared among the countries. And this also helps the countries that are not advanced to catch up with those countries that are quite advanced, because it would be unfair to expect a smaller country with a small GDP and very low public purse to invest in the digital infrastructure that is very costly. And it's not only about the investment, but it's also about maintaining that infrastructure. So to allow cost sharing, infrastructure sharing, we see that how we can benefit and ensure that the digital infrastructure of the continent is beneficial, is advanced, and also helps the other countries that are not advanced. Coming to the issue of the payments. Yesterday, I made a statement to say technology is not the problem, especially in terms of payments. Technology has the solutions that we are looking for. You heard President Orama and the Secretary General earlier in the conversation when they were talking about the currencies that we have and how the money, the billions that are being lost annually are not lost because the prices are low, but are lost because of the costs that are associated. And in the protocol, we have removed the regulatory restrictions to cross-border payments. Ask yourself, why is it difficult today to pay from a mobile money in Algeria into a mobile money in Egypt? It's not technology, right? It's the regulatory restrictions that have been imposed by countries. And now the protocol on digital trade has removed those regulatory restrictions to say, enable interoperability or cross-border movement or payments of the monies across the continent. In the same area, around the area of digital payments, removing regulatory restrictions to enable cross-border digital payments has been dealt with, but there's also another challenge which is related to safety and security, cybercrime. Yes, cybercrime. Most people, in as much as they want to pay online, we do not feel safe, because if I put my details online, the next day, I might lose all the money that is in my bank account. And dealing with cybersecurity in a digital space is very difficult because it doesn't have boundaries. It doesn't have, it's not only within a certain jurisdiction. And for you to deal and address cybersecurity, you need multi-stakeholder collaboration, multi-stakeholder cooperation for you to be able to regulate the cybersecurity. And the entire ecosystem needs all the players to put hands on deck to deal with cybersecurity, online consumer protection. So there are quite a number of measures that have been put in place to ensure that cybercrime, online safety and security in the ecosystem, the digital payment ecosystem is addressed by all the countries, and there are remedies. If I lose my money online, I will be able to pursue, I will be able to go and sue and pursue legal remedies in another jurisdiction, something which does not exist at the moment. And just to allow me to conclude with this point, the legal framework that has been created enables this single market that we are talking about to have a same set of rules, regulations, and standards. Payment standards are similar across the continent, which enables interoperability. If there are payment standards on digital payments or mobile money, and they are harmonized across the continent, it enables interoperability between the payments. It allows the cybersecurity, if there is a regulatory framework with institutions, capacity building, collaboration, and allowing each other to pursue remedies across the border, we have solved half of the problems. You see what is happening today, whereby if I lose my money in a bank account of a financial institution in one country, they will tell you, we don't know how to resolve it. What did you do? They put the blame on you, but the scammers are smarter and wiser than us. Digital literacy is important. So it covers the entire, all the stakeholders. They need to have this kind of knowledge to make sure that in their participation, they are also safe and digitally literate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chidede. I think the laptop in itself is telling us that it's time to round up, but I want to thank all of you for being here. Please be assured that our expert speakers would... You want us to continue? Okay. Our chief has given us the opening to keep the conversation going. Thank you so much. He had an expert engagement, but he's cut it short to be here and to continue the conversation. So we'll take one or two more questions, please. Christopher, I see you had your hand up before. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Christopher Ofala, and I'm from Liberia. I'm with the AU Pavilion as one of the startups, the AU startups. I've heard all the amazing things you've mentioned about the AFCFTA, but I think one thing that is not being put out there is especially for businesses who are new to this, is what are the processes or the costs associated with joining or becoming part of the AFCFTA, so people can have a clear understanding about, okay, this is beautiful, but what am I getting into, and what is the process for me getting my platform onto the AFCFTA framework?
Sure. So you're asking about us really delving into and bringing to light what it takes to be part of the AFCFTA family. Who wants to take this question? Okay, Adam. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christopher. So there seems to be a myth about maybe a certain cost that businesses would have to pay. Where I sit in Ghana, I see that a lot. Businesses come up to us and say, we want to trade another AFCFTA. How much do I need to pay? What are the costs? But I would like to maybe expound here today that there are no direct costs to necessarily trade under the AFCFTA. For a practitioner in maybe trading goods, the cost element would come at the national level, where if you are trying to get a rules of origin certificate, your country might impose a small fee. So for Ghana, that fee is about the equivalent of $15 for a certificate that says your goods originate from Ghana, right? But for other services or for digital trade services, I imagine the cost there would be, if you enter another jurisdiction, maybe the local people might say, oh, there's a small fee you need to pay for this, maybe to incorporate or to register your services, stuff like that. But there are no direct costs for the AFCFTA that you are required to pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Numadzi. Dr. Chidede?
Thank you very much. I'll be very brief with, that's a very practical question that has been asked. And it's unfortunate that we only have a few minutes to talk about things at a high level. There's no cost that is involved for you to do business under the FCFTA. We do not have to pay for any lessons for us to give you this information. It's a public good, it's information that is very accessible to you. Being from Liberia, the good thing is Liberia is being a state party of the FCFTA. Having ratified the FCFTA agreement, it gives you the rights now to even start trading under the FCFTA. Just to save time, I think we can have a discussion later, but you can get more information from the Ministry of Trade in the Gambia, since this is the focal point of the FCFTA within every member state. So they have the right information and the right documents where you need to knock for you to get the specific documents for you to do business under the FCFTA if you're a company and, from the Gambia. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chidede. So we see access to information is key, and we are gaining that by being here. Please, your question, sir.
I'm Dr. Victor Okai. I'm an investment banker. And my question is that, my question is, what are we doing about removing customs and immigration barriers? Because obviously, across several states, on the continent, you find a situation where maybe the education is not wide enough, where we're still nervous about dealing with each other. And unless these barriers are collapsed, it becomes a problem. To travel here, I had to go to France first, from Lagos, where I took off before coming to this place. what are the practical steps? Because quite frankly, you may talk about goods originating from country to country, but the AFCFTA covers services as well, which means some of these you may have to physically be there. What are the countries that have signed up doing to protect people who have come to do it? And I'll just say this and round up. Kenya, I believe, and Rwanda have removed visa restrictions. Am I correct? And if you notice, unlike what other countries think, people have not invaded these countries. Am I right? So I don't know what we're nervous about. Why countries, I mean, what's the conversation? And what's being done about it? Because otherwise, we'll just be talking about this year on, and I don't know how it's going to. People are suspicious. People are not they're not very sure that even their investments will be protected. What's been done about it, or what are you hoping to do to make sure that we can move freely without these customs, immigration barriers, and without any being nervous about, doing business within the zone? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Chidede would take this question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Doctor. That's a very pertinent question. FCFTA is about enabling the free movement of goods, services, capital investment, and people. Because goods and services do not move alone. They also move with the people. And the challenge we are facing is, in as much as we are talking about removing barriers, tariffs and non-tariff barriers to goods and services, the conversation of people moving across the borders is still silent. But that doesn't mean that the FCFTA does not address these areas. Of course, there is a free movement of protocol that is being negotiated by our colleagues in Addis. There is work that is being done within the framework or the context of the FCFTA to facilitate the movement of business persons under the FCFTA in the area of protocol on trade and services. You remember I mentioned the 5 priority sectors: business services, communications, transport, finance, and communications. There is what we call Mod 4, which is the movement of people. So that has also been, there's work that is being done to ensure that we remove restrictions for professionals that are providing services. So if I'm a lecturer from Algeria and I want to go and teach in Egypt, there should not be any restrictions because it's temporary movement. I'm not going to go and stay there, but I'm just going to provide the services abroad. So that's one of professional services moving to go across the borders to provide the services. And the product that is being traded here is services, but who is providing the services is the lecturer himself. And if you make it difficult for this individual to have access or to get a visa to another country, what have you restricted? We have not restricted the individual, we have restricted the service itself. The second one is the tourism aspect. I want to go and be a tourist in a country, and I'm going to spend money in that country as a tourist. But I spend so much money just to apply for the visa before I go and spend the money. Why don't we remove all the restrictions of tourists who are visiting to consume tourism services, because they are going to spend more money, rather than hindering them from consuming the services by just applying for the services. So this is the area that is being done to enable and facilitate the movement of persons who are going to be trading under the AFCFTA. We have an initiative under the Protocol on Digital Trade of what we are calling an AFCFTA digital identity. So this initiative, agreed by the member states, is an initiative that is aiming to facilitate the movement of people across the borders in a very safe and secure manner. Of course, it's more of a business visa that is going to be given to individuals or players within the trade ecosystem, including the driver, including the companies that are trading. If I'm an intermediary providing services, I have this digital identity under the FCFTA, then I do not have to comply with other restrictions, visa requirements, and so forth. And I will conclude by saying this: until we deal with the restrictions of movement of people, we have solved over 60 or 50% of the problems that we have in ensuring that there is intra-Africa trade and intra-Africa trade in goods and trade in services in both ways. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chidede. I see Mr. Numadzi wants to also add on, so you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Doc. I just wanted to add on, because my colleague has mentioned extensively that usually when we talk about a fully integrated continent, the benchmark is the EU. They are customs union. It's easy to get into one market and then move easily into other markets, all 20-something of them. But I like to tell people that for us, we are a very nascent integrated continent. We are only just starting with our integration. So while we like to aspire to that level of integration, it behoves on us to offer some sort of hope in the process, because countries, like you said, are slowly eliminating visa requirements. Kenya has done it, Rwanda has done it, Ghana, for a lot of countries, is doing it, and very soon a lot more countries will do it. There's a free movement protocol by the AU, like the colleague mentioned, and more countries are adopting and ratifying it. Very soon we see more people ratifying, and very soon, when we've fully integrated the continent at a free trade area, and we've started adopting common trade policies at some point in the future, and common external foreign policies, we could possibly see Africa evolve into a customs union. The EU started in the 50s, 60s, but look at where they are now. It's been 70 years down the line, right? So I think there will come a time where we will evolve as a continent to that level, and when we get there, we'll see the free movement and the integration we are aspiring to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Numadzi. Any final? Okay, I see okay, 3 more hands. And let's kindly take the question to my left. Adam.
I need to be facing the audience. Thank you very much. My name is Rida. I think we have to be very pessimistic. We have to be very optimistic about the future. We are just starting with the CFTA. Of course, we cannot compare ourselves to EU or other countries. It takes, like the speaker was saying, it takes time. It takes time and effort. We have to start with the easy things. I know that each country have resources, have product, have services to offer. I think we need to work hard on the logistic, because the connection between the countries is very difficult. I don't know about other countries, but for Algeria, for the moment, we have only 8 countries which are available to trade and to do exchanges, hoping that things will develop very soon for other countries. Remember, it's not easy, because countries are losing on terms of resources. Imagine you were charging 30% of taxes, and then the next day they will tell you, okay, we cut this tax, we don't pay tax. So this is very painful for the government. We are losing in terms of taxes. It's not easy to do. You have to make sure the country we are trading with also is facilitating the access to their market. Because imagine if Algeria is facilitating access to many other countries, and other countries, they are playing games or putting hurdles on the face of Algerian product. Is not easy. So it takes time. We need to get familiar, and we are expecting a very, very bright future, because we need to trust ourselves. If we don't trust in ourselves, nobody will trust in us. We need to work hard to put faith in this process, and I'm sure the future will be bright, because remember, Africa is the youngest continent on the planet. All other countries, they are aging, and they are losing in terms of production and in terms of competing with the market. Africa is the future. So many things are playing on the world stage. We have to position ourselves on the world stage, and we don't let them to do to us what we have done in the past, in the 19th century, where they put Africa on the side. Trust ourselves, and thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. We'll take one more comment/question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I am Hagar Nishtadasa. I came from Ethiopia. It was insightful and a great use case with practical example. My questions are, as somebody in tech and the innovation ecosystem, I don't know about these protocols. How can other startups, innovators get more access to these protocols, engage about the protocols, discuss and get used to it too? One. The second one is, we have seen so many protocols. These are great. Do we have a protocol related to local NGOs scaling continentally and cultural and other exchanges? Because as a youth, we have so many NGOs locally, and as African, we believe in Ubuntu. So we wanted to share, we wanted to think about others. And the third one is, when we think of scaling, we have given lecture to look at regulations, entry strategy, and other things. Where to look these things? I mean, is there information hub to look these things, or do we have to partner with somebody? Thank you.
Thank you. Most of your questions are centered around access to information. That is, where do you get the information related to the AFCFTA vis-a-vis a specific sector? And so my speakers, who would want to speak to this? Thank you. Dr. Chidede, I see you are taking this.
Access to information is becoming very topical in the discussion. There's information deficit we can see. We do have colleagues in at the pavilion who are well equipped to explain different aspects of the protocols. I know I can refer you to say you can have a look at the protocols because they are online and so forth, but it might be very difficult to understand because it's a legal language. But having access to information is not only be able to have the document, but to understand it so that you can apply it into business. So I would encourage my sister to meet any of our FCFTA colleagues to share the information, and for the practical purposes of business, also to reach out to the domestic, to the Ministry of Trade within the country, because they are the focal points. They're all the information that is more relevant to the businesses within their country. She mentioned, I don't know if I captured correctly, on the creatives, that is there anything that touches on the creative? I mentioned earlier that one of the most important decisions that was made, which I firmly believe it's something that we need to invest our energy, time, and funding on is promoting African-owned businesses, African content, African digital products, including the music industry, including the creative industry that our businesses, our youth are well vested in. And how do we do this? Investment of capital, promoting and protecting the intellectual property rights to ensure that we do not lose these creative or these innovative ideas to piracy or unlawful breaches of intellectual property rights, because this is the area that we see that most of our creatives in the continent are. Why? That's the reason why they are not making money, is because there is no investment and the laws that do protect them. And I'm happy to share this idea that there are provisions in the Intellectual Property Rights Protocol, the area of trade in services, ensuring that the creative industry as a service is promoted, and from a digital trade perspective, it's promoted, it's protected, and enabled to grow as an industry across the continent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kathy would also add on. Thank you, Dr. Chidede.
Yes, so it's a very good question, and I think it is worth also mentioning that the AFCFTA is working with institutions like ITC. We are a UN agency, and our role is to really support the small and medium-sized enterprises export. So internally, we have developed different materials as well to support SMEs, to know more about the opportunities offered by the AFCFTA. So I think we have a training module which is also available online on the SME Trade Academy, where you can have access to information and training for free. So we have also been supported by governments such as Japan to also spread the word, tell you more about, as a tech startup, how can you use the AFCFTA later to expand regionally and in the continent. So I think institutions like ITC has been also playing this role. And I also want to point out the role of tech hubs. I think also they are multipliers, and they are here to support the ecosystem, and I hope that they will also be great partners for the AFCFTA to spread information among youth, among the tech startups, and the relevant stakeholders.
Thank you, Kathy. And to give a practical example before I hand over to Dr. Chidede for his additional comments, you might have received an AFCFTA glossary document. But if you haven't, you can also download it on the on Google Play or the App Store. Just type AFCFTA glossary. But this product, as an example, seeks to unpack the terms. You know, some terms can be so technical. You hear rules of origin, you're asking, what does it mean? But the aim of this knowledge product was to really simplify the AFCFTA language for businesses. So feel free to go through it. It's almost like your pocketbook. If you hear a term during conversations on AFCFTA that you do not understand, you can open it, and it covers key terms from the protocols. So again, this is a practical example of making the AFCFTA accessible to more businesses. And Dr. Chidede, you had some pointers to add on, so the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. This would be my last point, and I wanted to thank you very much, sir, for bringing this optimism in the room. Because most people do not see it in that way. They think, they compare Africa to Europe, but they don't know the history and the journey that Europe had to take, and the number of years that Europe had to take to be where it is right now. And if it took Europe over 70 years to integrate to be what it is right now, let's just praise ourselves and give ourselves a pat on the back of what has been achieved within the shortest period of time. You had when the Secretary General and the President of Afreximbank were talking, it's the journey that started in 2018. But what has been achieved so far, it's something that is worth of praising and recognizing. And also to say that the FCFTA is not just another policy that has been added onto the table. There are quite a number of these instruments that were discussed earlier to support, because trade agreements do not create trade. There are other enabling factors that we need to work on such that the trade happens. We create a legally binding commitments, a conducive environment, but we also need to support businesses so that they can participate in this market. And all the tools that we mentioned from yesterday and that were mentioned in the session earlier are meant to support the businesses to participate in the FCFTA. And that's how we are going to realize this FCFTA market and to ensure that it becomes a reality. And very soon, who knows, maybe in the next 10 years, we will be where Europe is today. Thank you very much. It's the same journey that we are working on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chidede. And I would like to believe all of us here at this point are AFCFTA ambassadors. You've stayed throughout, you've gained information, so let's also spread the word. And I think I'll end by saying that, like Dr. Chidede said, the architecture and the framework has been created, but then it will take businesses to actually leverage what is now the enabling environment to be able to access this unified market and create opportunities. Not only do you get to access new markets, but in doing so, you also create jobs and you contribute to the prosperity of our African continent. So I hope that when we are gathered in the next IATF, the businesses here would be able to tell their practical AFCFTA journeys. I think that's the charge I give to you as we leave. That is to say, you have the information, move from theory to action and tell your story and inspire others. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Okay, I invite everyone to kindly join us up here for a family picture.